All right, today we are diving into one of the oldest and most fascinating puzzles in religious scripture. These strange, seemingly random letters that show up at the beginning of many chapters in the Quran. They've been a mystery for centuries, but what if a solution has finally been found?
I mean, really think about that. What if a sacred text, one that's been studied by billions of people, actually has a kind of code embedded in it? A structural key that's been hiding in plain sight this whole time. So, what we're talking about has a specific name, al-huruf al-muqatta'at, which basically means the disjointed letters, or mysterious letters. You'll find them at the very start of 29 different chapters. They're just letters, like alif, lam, mim, but here's the thing. They don't form any known words. They have no obvious meaning. And look, this isn't some new age puzzle. We're talking about a genuine 1400-year-old enigma. For literally all of recorded Islamic history, the true meaning and the purpose of these letters, well, it's been a complete mystery. So here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we'll dig into the ancient mystery itself. Then, we'll explore this wild idea that the letters are actually symbolic keys. After that, we'll see how those keys might unlock hidden sets within the text. And stick around for the rhythmic fingerprint. It's fascinating stuff. Before we ask what this whole new framework could really mean.
All right, let's start with part one, really getting a handle on just how deep this 1400-year-old enigma goes.
You see, for the longest time, the standard view was pretty straightforward. These letters are a divine secret. God knows what they mean, and we don't. So any attempt to figure them out was seen as a waste of time or maybe even crossing a line. And because of that, they've just stayed this great unsolved puzzle. So how in the world do you even start to tackle a puzzle like that? Well, it begins with a pretty bold new theory from an author named Sam Garrett. And the very first layer of his solution, it's a game changer. His core argument is actually quite simple, but it's really profound. He claims these letters were never supposed to be read for their sound. Not at all. Instead, they are symbols, kind of like icons, and each one stands for something else. Think about it like this. We're all used to letters having a lexical meaning, right? The letter B makes a B sound. It helps form a word. But this theory says these letters have a symbolic value. It's much more like algebra. When you see the letter X in a math problem, you don't sound it out. You know it's a placeholder for a number, for a value. And the idea is that these mysterious letters in the Quran work just like that X. But okay, what's the evidence for that? Well, it all comes down to their visual design. Out of the whole Arabic alphabet, only 14 specific letters are used for this. And here is the kicker. If you group Arabic letters by their basic shapes, the ones that look similar but have different dots, you discover something incredible. The Quran never uses two letters from the same shape group. Each one is visually unique. This strongly suggests they were picked to be easily recognizable, unambiguous symbols, not just letters to be sounded out. Okay, so if they're symbols, what are they symbolizing? This is where the theory starts to reveal what it calls a hidden architecture, a blueprint inside the text itself. The theory proposes that these letter symbols are basically organizational keys. They're not random. They're there to group different chapters together into what Garrett calls sets. And each of these sets, he argues, has its own specific theme and is aimed at a particular audience. And here are the main sets that this theory identifies. You have, for example, the writ set, which is described as guidance specifically for the pious. Then there's the remembrance set, which seems to be for individuals on a divine mission. And then you have broader ones, like the mankind and Quran sets, which are addressed to all people but deal with different topics, like laws and warnings. So why does this even matter? Well, Garrett uses a really powerful analogy from the Hebrew Bible. He says a reader would never try to interpret the beautiful poetry of the Psalms with the same mindset they use for the strict legal code in the book of Leviticus. They're just different. This theory suggests the Quran has its own built-in distinctions like that, and these letters are the key to finally seeing them clearly. But look, a theory about groupings is one thing. Is there any hard textual evidence to back it up? That brings us to the second layer of proof, which involves a really deep technical dive into the text's own rhythm. To check this idea of hidden sets, Garrett did something pretty amazing. He analyzed the very last sound of every single verse in the Quran, all 6,000 plus of them. And what he claims to have found are these distinct repeating rhythmic patterns that appear at the end of verses. He calls them sound packets. Now, here is the crucial point, the real aha moment. It turns out that each of those proposed sets, the writ set, the mankind set, all of them, has its own unique combination of these rhythmic patterns. The patterns aren't just scattered randomly, they seem to correlate directly with the mysterious letters at the start of the chapters. He gives this a name, a rhythmic signature. He's basically saying each set has a unique textural fingerprint. The argument is that this provides almost mathematical proof that these groupings aren't just some modern interpretation, but that they were intentionally woven into the very fabric of the Quran's structure from the beginning. So, just to give you a feel for it, the signature of the writ set is described as very uniform and smooth. It mostly uses just one main rhythmic pattern over and over. But then you look at the mankind set, and its signature is really complex and varied, using all 5 of the different rhythmic patterns that were identified. It just feels different.
So let's pull back for a second. We've got a hidden symbolic code, and it's apparently backed up by a rhythmic fingerprint. So what does all of this actually mean? Let's zoom out and think about the bigger picture here. What is the final takeaway from a theory that claims to have cracked a code that's been a mystery for 1,400 years?
Well, ultimately, what this framework is proposing is a whole new way to look at the Quran. It suggests a structure that comes entirely from the text itself, not from later traditions or historical accounts. It means chapters might be grouped by their intended audience and purpose. This offers a new, self-contained way to interpret the text, one that doesn't have to rely so much on external literature written centuries later. And that leaves us with a pretty profound question to mull over. Could a structural key, one that's been hidden in plain sight for 14 centuries, fundamentally change how a sacred text is read and understood today? That's definitely a thought worth pondering.